Mary, if you could, tell us about some of the big market winners and market losers during the coronavirus era.
Sure, gladly. So if you look at the market, you can see that the big winners are the one that follow the stay-at-home trend. So you can see Zoom, and this is how we're having our interview right now, that soared 600%, which is insane. And you can see fitness companies like Nike, like Peloton, like Lululemon, that soared hundreds of percent, and all the companies that are related to cloud, software, companies like Wix, that, more and more people build their own websites, companies that are related to digital health. So all these companies, and there are also some surprising elements like pets-related companies, which even surprised me because people are more attached to their pets these days. So you see that there are these kind of companies that are the big winners. And unfortunately, where you have the big winners, you also have the ones that couldn't adapt. You can see that entertainment suffers a lot. You can see that many apparel companies filed for bankruptcy, and we see really leading brand names like Neiman Marcus, like Gap, like companies that we all know and appreciate, but during this time, it's hard. And obviously the restaurants and all these sectors that are suffering these days.
Tech IPOs seem to be a big thing right now. Even Warren Buffett invested in Snowflake, which he's been staunchly against those kinds of investments for a long time. What are some of the advantages versus the risks of investing in these type of IPOs?
There is this sentiment now that the large tech companies are COVID resilient and that it's considered to be a safe investment. And you know what? When you look at the recent IPOs, and to name a few, you named Snowflake, you can look at the Israeli one, JFrog, you can see that the returns for investors on these IPOs were literally insane. I mean, Snowflake is the largest software IPO since Dell, since 2007. So you can see that the demand for that is huge, and that's why the returns are also remarkable. And growth is the king now. So even if Snowflake loses money, the investors are looking at the growth trajectory, and that's what pushes them into this sector.
So what are the risks involved?
After a huge rally, you need to be aware that maybe after the rally, there are some momentum players that played along and will go out and will sell the stocks. However, you do need to focus on the fact that there is a real change and there is a real demand for these kind of tech companies that will enable us to continue and function and operate during the ongoing pandemic, even afterwards. When we think about the world post-COVID, more and more people will continue to work remotely. July was the best IPO market in a decade. So if companies see that they can sit at home, have dinner at night with their family, and not need to go for a 2-week roadshow in order to raise $10 million, I'm sure that these managers, that their time is key, will be more sensitive of their time.
We've seen at least 4 Israeli companies now either launch or file for an IPO in American markets just in the last month. Is that an unusually high number, and is it related to market conditions right now?
It reflects the high demand for solid technology companies that have something to offer in terms of how we're going to operate in the future. Since the beginning of the year, just on NASDAQ, there were over 100 IPOs. So I'm not surprised at all that there are more Israeli companies that would like to enjoy and benefit from this trend. It makes a lot of sense.
We're coming up on a presidential election in the U.S., and the relationship between Wall Street and Main Street always seems to be a hot topic, but especially now with the coronavirus pandemic. What is that relationship like right now, Wall Street versus Main Street?
I think that the disconnect was never as clear as these days. As it relates to our interview and what we talked about the IPO, July was, as I mentioned, the best IPO market in decade. And when you look at the unemployment, it's at the highest it's ever been since the Big Depression. So it rose to almost 15%. It almost doubled since the pandemic. So this is painful. You see, as I mentioned, leading brands that are filing for bankruptcy. And on the other hand, the NASDAQ hit all times high and passed the 12,000 points, where at the, lowest point of the pandemic, it was, 6,800. So the gap is unbelievable. The disconnect is unbelievable. And I believe that it will remain like that for a while because the financial impact of the pandemic is here for a longer period than we think.
Very unique and challenging and unstable times right now on Wall Street. Miri, we thank you for your insight and your analysis. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.